Hi, it's Daniela Rabbani, the host of Mom Curious, feeling a little shy because today is a solo episode, all to do with Dan. So Dan is my husband of 11 years. We've been together for 15. And I recently told Laura and Brian, the producers of Hoff Studios, the producers of this podcast, I was just giggling with them about how Dan cries every time he sees Toy Story, I think it's 3, just is so moved by it. And that's like, it's those moments when he's crying and like Ness is crying, like at the end when they're giving away the toys, when I think, God, I hit the jackpot. I really fucking love this guy. Like, I love him even more than I loved him when we first met. It's just like, it really does it for me. And so that inspired this episode, because I guess I don't really talk much about Dan or us. He's pretty private, so like even just like a whole episode on him, I'm like, I'll totally have to vet it, because he's like not an actor, he's not a performer, he's like a regular person who does not need like everyone to like applaud him or know him. He's the best. He's unlike me in that way. So I'll tell you how we met. What do you think? You want to know? Sounds like you want to know, so I'll tell you. I had just graduated from college. I was 22. So if you just did the math, that means I'm 37, because this was 15 years ago. And I was working at a wine bar as a hostess. I was actually very good at the hostess job, but they didn't make a lot of money. I mean, they made $15 an hour, which, like, is not no money, but it was, like, I was living in a 1-bedroom apartment with 4 girls. My part of the apartment was, like, sectioned off by this screen that they would use at, like, massage places or, anyway, a very cheap screen. And we lived right above a bar, Ryan's, it wasn't Wall Street, but it was in the financial district, downtown New York City. We ended up getting bed bugs, by the way. Surprising no one. But it was really fun, and I had just graduated acting school at NYU, and we were all auditioning, all except for one girl. One girl, Laura, was... How many Lauras have I mentioned in this podcast? One girl, Laura... I'm not going to say her last name, even though she's great and maybe listening to this. Hi! She's a lawyer. She wasn't auditioning and trying to be an actor. She was like a very good waitress, a very high-end waitress. And she was, I think, preparing to go to law school. And also falling in love with another Dan with red hair. Sort of bizarre. And amazing. We're all still together. She just had her 3rd baby. We're all still together, like we're in some sort of like 4-way marriage. Great. Okay, for clarity's sake, that is not the case. We have 2 different marriages. Cool. Now, so I met Dan after one of my shifts at Morel's, the wine bar, wherein, of course, I was drunk because it's a wine bar, and I got free, very good, very high-end wine, and I was 22, and that's what I did, because that's what you do, right? And we met at a bar, which is what we, like, would tell people if we wanted to sound cool, but really it was a charity event that my mom was throwing, and because my mom is an event planner, she's actually a really, really incredible event planner. Holy cow. And so, yeah, my cousin was bringing his friends. My cousin brought his friends. And one of his friends was Dan. And I actually do remember more and more now meeting him. But the story that I would always tell people is that, like, I don't even remember it. And he saw fairies and unicorns, which is, like, half true. He definitely saw fairies and unicorns and his wife. Like, he was just like, that's the one, that's it. And if you've ever met Dan Stricken, you know the guy gets what he wants. He just goes after it. He just makes it happen. And I was drunk. Like, I didn't even know what was happening. I don't really drink anymore now at all. Not because I'm, like, sober or had, like, any issues with alcohol, but just because, like, it would basically be, like, 0 to 60. Like it was not, my body is not, like, the type of system where it's like, oh, have a casual drink. No, I go from, like, 2 drinks to, like, I don't remember meeting the love of my life. So that's where we were. I was 22, he was 23. And Jonathan, my cousin, invited me to another party. Now, my cousin is a year older than me. He's my second or third cousin, but when you're Persian, like, it doesn't matter. You're not counting generations or steps or whatever. Like, you're just all cousins. But he had never, like, paid any attention to me at all. Like, he just literally never. So I was like, gee, this is strange. Are we going to be friends now? No. He's trying to set me up with one of his friends. Now, which one? I don't know. I definitely thought that night, well, I was like, oh, maybe it's that one. Maybe it's this one. Oh, I had a lengthy conversation with that guy. I knew full well that Jonathan had no interest in hanging out with me because he had 22 years of no interest in hanging out with me. And, like, this week was no different. But I was wrong. Like, all of those, like, guys who are still Dan's very close friends had no interest in me. And it was Dan. It was Dan who did not flirt with me at all. We ended up talking about global warming. And I just thought, this is someone special. He wasn't hitting on me, so I didn't understand that it was him. But whatever. He followed up on Facebook. Remember that this was 15 years ago, guys. Facebook. Like the precursor to dating apps, Facebook, right? And then what happened? I don't know. I went on another date with him. Oh, my mom threw another beautiful event at a place called Capital, which is this, like, old bank on the Bowery in Lower Manhattan. And we danced, and I knew, and my family was there, my whole family. My sister-in-law was like, that was the moment I knew, like, that's that guy. And I just knew. All right, that was a long-winded way of saying how we met and how we fell in love. And if you ever saw our New York Times wedding announcement, it basically just says that we met at Capital that last meeting, because that's when I was fully functioning, I guess, or just, like, got it that, like, oh, this is, like, the most special person that ever existed. Oh, cool. Oh, he, like, wants to, what? Me? Okay. Yes, that's when that happened. That's where that happened. So we just sort of cut to the chase in that conversation, because that's also where Dan proposed 4 years later. And where or was it 3 years later? And that's where we got married 4 years later. So, shout out to Capital. Very special place. Oh my gosh, Laura just wrote me a note. I am so fucking excited for this, because you really haven't spoken much about Dan, your relationship. And trust people are going to be interested. Yes, I get some questions, and yay. I'm glad you'll be interested, friends. Yeah, so I mentioned that I sort of fall in love with him all over again when he cries at Toy Story 3. And he's a really good dad, guys. He's just a really, really good dad. He's like everyone's favorite person in this house. Everyone. From like the dog to me, to our kids, like even like my mother, like our babysitter. Dan's the favorite. And I'm like totally cool with that. I was totally jealous that Ness was, obsessed with him, but, with a little more clarity, I realize, why wouldn't he be? The man cries at the end of Toy Story 3. That's how invested he is. And I do think that falling in love again after so long, being together for so long, and then changing so much over that time. I met him when he was in law school, and then he became a corporate lawyer and worked for an amazing entertainment law firm, and then built his own. So that's just him changing, even just professionally. But there have been like a million iterations of each of us in the 15 years that we've been together. So falling in love again is important. Taking space is important too. I think the pandemic, like we were just literally on top of each other. And I've made a real effort in this past year to like get the fuck out, I think it's been really helpful. And it means that like Saturday mornings when he's like fully immersed in Toy Story 3. How many times? Basically, Toy Story 3 has sponsored this episode. But anyway, when I do see him on, the weekends after like not being totally enmeshed, I get to really enjoy him, and he me. Yeah, that's our origin story. Just a peek in. Hey guys, if you have questions like these questions about like just personal stuff, or what you'd like me to cover on this podcast, would you DM me at Daniela Rabbani on Instagram? I really would love to hear from you. I really do love hearing from you. And I'm looking for, I continue to look for diverse voices in the mom space. I'm interested in dads too. Don't get me wrong. You heard how interested I am in dads, aka Dan, the dad. But, mostly as a by the way. My primary interest is in supporting women on the path to their full expression, whether that be with children or without, whether that be in relationship or not. So to that end, I'm still looking for foster parents. A couple have fallen through. I think it is a pretty tricky, parenting space to publicize, so, and talk sort of openly about. So if you guys know any foster parents who would like to just shed some light on the experience for the Mom Curious crowd, that would be awesome. Adoptive parents. We're going to be interviewing parents of disabled children, and so on. But if there are any suggestions or any people that you love, would you also send them my way? I'm so grateful for you. I hope you liked this little peek into my life with Dan, who is just the most supportive and loving human that has ever been a human, and I'm just so lucky. I just feel so lucky. And I do feel really lucky that you're listening, and that you're engaging. I hope this serves you. I hope you have a great night. See you next week.